for education marketing. We've taken a number of elements from other sectors, but we'll have a special focus today on the education sector, the restrictions that the education sector might face, and we'll also take some questions as we go along. You should have access to a chat box in the bottom right hand corner. I apologize for starting 2 minutes late. I was just waiting for a couple more people to finish joining. But let's get started. So we as a business focus on supporting educational organisations with how they improve the attraction of parents, pupils, customers, but also staff. So when we talk about recruitment in this session, it will be about the recruitment of staff. And when we talk about the marketing elements, which is the main focus of this session, is going to be around marketing to parents, to potential pupils, to learners, to maybe customers of your educational products, just to kind of make it a little bit simpler to follow along. But feel free to, you can't hear anything. Can anybody else hear anything? Brilliant. I have just changed my microphone. Millie, would you mind letting me know if you can now hear me? Hopefully on the right hand side, you should have a button for some sound. If not, it might be on some setting on your computer or your headset. I know sometimes headsets can be a bit like that. If not, Millie, what I can do is I can send across a recording afterwards, but hopefully on the right hand side you should be able to see an option to increase the volume. I will continue on, but if you can't hear anything, Millie, please do let me know. So as I was saying, a lot of our focus will be on the marketing to potential customers. We're basing this knowledge off, we've got about 146 clients at the moment. So all of those are within the education sector. They might be doing different things. They might be ed tech, they might be pathway providers, they might be independent schools, they might be trusts, a variety of different things. But they all share common problems. They're all looking to improve the way that they attract people. And there's a different mixture of brand awareness and lead generation, depending on the time of year, depending on the client, depending on what wonderful things the government have come up with for that particular period in time, and so on and so forth. So we've kept all of those different things in mind. And the structure that we'll be going through is just going to be talking to you a little bit about storytelling in education marketing, how it fits in. We'll talk a little bit about understanding your audience. I'm sure a lot of you have done a lot of work around that. So hopefully there's some tips and tricks we can share. What are the elements of a compelling story? What techniques and tools could you be using? And then how could you be integrating what we're talking about into your marketing strategy? Because I'm very aware that when I attend these kind of sessions, I talk through a lot of things with colleagues afterwards, but then quite often I never get time to implement them. So we'll just talk a little bit about how you can implement them by integrating it into your actual marketing strategy. So let's start off with, just to let you know, by the way, you can ask questions, but we've already been through that. Let's start off by introducing storytelling. So in this sense, it is linked to your brand, and we've got some masterclasses around brand. We've also got some resources, so feel free to look at our website and download those. But storytelling is a really powerful tool, and it goes above and beyond um, simply conveying facts about your organization. Sorry, just to jump back to Millie. Um, I will send you the recording, Millie, in an email after this session, and I'm very happy to give you a call as well and go through any of the questions that you might have once you've watched it. But I'll make sure that I send it across to you in an email. Everybody that attends today and that has registered will receive a copy of the recording as well. So the concept of storytelling within brand is to create a narrative that makes an emotional connection between you as a company or a school or a charity and your customers. So it's to move on from simply telling people your price and your size and where you're located. It moves on to actually telling a story that joins together some of those emotional connections that your current customers have so that you can attract more customers. So it is incredibly important at the moment that there is a shift in marketing. Just as a bit of an infographic and some facts here, people were seeing in the 70s between 500 to 1,600 adverts a day. Now people can see as many as 10,000 adverts per day. People really are bombarded. So it's really important that people consider how they stand out from all of that chatter, being bombarded with information. And the way to do that is to create some form of emotional connection. We know that since the pandemic in particular, and it's very easy in these sessions to link things back to the pandemic, but it does genuinely seem to be linked to the pandemic. The attention span that people have for marketing materials really has shot down. We're at the point where some research shows that the average attention span for marketing is about 4 seconds at the moment. So you've got to very quickly make an emotional connection so that people will they'll engage with you. They'll click through to find out more. They will just realized that Millie couldn't hear me, but they will make sure that they're connected to you in some way to kind of take some kind of action. If they don't connect with you emotionally, they're not likely to. So this is just some survey about marketing fatigue. People felt that they were being bombarded by them. People felt like even when it was appropriate, they wished they could get less emails from people. 18%, which I thought was actually quite high, 18% of people felt that it was just the right amount of content that they were getting through. So even when things are going well, there is a possibility that you might be sending too much to your target audience. And we can see that if we don't change our target audiences when we're running campaigns, if we don't consider new target audiences and we consider trying different things, you do see that your target audience can get saturated would be the best word, and disengaged with what you're doing. Storytelling will help with that, but it won't necessarily solve that. You've still got to work out the ideal level of content sharing that you give to people. So that might be across digital platforms, that might be across emails, that might be across social media. Work out what is an appropriate level to engage with people. I'm just going to let Millie know that I'll share the recording in an email. So how can you actually be making the most of this concept of making an emotional connection? So the way to be doing this is to be creating a compelling window into your organization. to show people what it is like, what's the culture, bring it to life so that that emotional connection is made because people feel like um, it's a shared set of values. You could be sharing things like achievements with them and community and the spirit that you have as an organization and link it back to that human element. And a lot of why people do have such little attention span for marketing is because so many marketing professionals, not necessarily in the education sector as a whole, but in marketing in general, so many people remove that human connection, and people feel like it's a business or a faceless organization marketing out to them. So storytelling helps you to bring to life your school or organization's values, the achievements that you're doing, some of the excitement you have, and some of that culture as well. And by the way, it's worth mentioning for the recruitment of staff, that's equally as important. You can also create a compelling picture of the services that you provide because you're linking it to what's important to you, you're considering that emotional connection. It can help you to convert people, would be the best way of putting it, because you're telling stories, you're giving an insight into your organization that is relevant to your target audience. And your target audience is your target audience because they are the people that you're wanting to attract. And ideally, you would already have a lot of those people and a lot of that culture set up within your organization. That's a lot harder to change. That's a completely different session, but it's a lot harder to change your culture and your offering. And it's a lot easier to change the way that you kind of position yourself. So by showcasing your school or organization's impact on individuals' lives, and that's the storytelling bit, and the community that you've built within that organization or school, you help to build trust and loyalty. So this is an approach that is long term. It's not just a kind of a quick win. It's something that you can do, and if you build on it and you repeat these stories, you do build up trust and loyalty. And definitely weave in an ethos and a vision that is using the language and the wording that your potential students, parents, or customers would use. I see a lot of people marketing out with storytelling, an ethos and a vision that is very corporate, that is very polished, and it doesn't have that element of giving a window into that school or organization. So just be careful that you're not being too polished when you're using this approach. So how does it actually work? The first place to start is to understand the problems of your target audience. Are they struggling to find schools that provide pastoral care? Are they struggling to find a school that maybe takes sport as seriously as they would like? Are they looking for tutors that will support them in a flexible way? What is it that they really struggle with? What are the problems that they have? You need to be getting across a connection that, as we talked about, is emotional. And to do that, you need to be sharing your solution to those unique problems. So make it very clear in your marketing that you understand those problems and this is how you can provide that solution. So what values do you have that drives the way you work and operate that solves those problems? If you can do that, you're already on a good route to converting more people. That ideally, when you're sharing those stories and those values linked to those problems, that ideally is going to be leading to that connection to take some kind of action. It's going to lead to an increase in visibility because people will engage with that content, and those people that engage with it, they'll be engaging because they've got an emotional connection. And typically you'll find that their connections, say on social media, their connections in their personal life will share their values, and therefore are very likely to be a suitable customer for you. So it does really help with visibility, and therefore that leads to greater conversions, and that leads to greater profit. So simplified it very much here. So I appreciate that it's not as easy as just doing this within 5 minutes. But if you understand your target audience's unique problems, and how your values as an organization can solve those problems, you're putting yourself in a very good position to base all of your marketing off of that. So how do you actually understand your audience? There's some really simple things that you can do. For me, I really like segmenting my audiences into as many different segments as possible, seeing where the overlap is, because when I have all of those different segments, it helps me to build personas, I think would be the best way of putting it. And if I can build personas for my target audience, I can build a story that's linked to the problems of those personas. So I understand the very basics, first of all, of the target demographics. That's where I start to kind of segment people. Maybe my target audience has 10 shared demographics, and 30 demographics that vary quite significantly within that target audience. I understand the psychographic segmentation within each of those areas, and I use a spreadsheet to do this, and what those people are attracted to might be a big part of that. And when I understand that, I can start to look at how that audience behaves. And when I'm looking at how that audience behaves, that psychographic element and that demographic element, it kind of gives me a background, would be the best way of describing it. So I know that they're acting in this way because of maybe their age, because of their location, because they're attracted to this type of thing, because they've come from a particular background. And for me, that's really helpful, because it gives some color to it. And a lot of storytelling is about that human connection. So if I understand that background, I can understand a little bit more about it. So once you then have that, it might be that your target audience is one very large segment. I very much doubt that for most people. Or it might be that you've got 4 or 5 different segments, or 2 or 3 different segments. So I then would be adjusting my marketing strategy and the offerings to those different people based on those different segments. So sales and independent school, I might be dividing it into people that would be suitable for my school based on the sports side, and people that might be attracted based on the academic side. When I look at the sports side, I would try and understand what makes them different. Are they different in terms of demographics? Are they different in the way that they think? Are they different in terms of their background? Are they different financially? What is it that makes them different? Because then I can write true, that's an important element, but true stories about the school that will connect with them emotionally. So it might be because they believe sport is a useful way to build resilience, and it might be that's because of the background that they come from. They are financially able to afford independent school because they've worked themselves up to that level, and therefore I could be talking to them about what some of those pupils who have really adopted some of the sporting elements of your school, what have they gone on to do? How has that resilience helped them in their university or their apprenticeship or their career? So therefore, I'm understanding the demographics, I understand the way that those people think, and I can also understand how those people behave. So they might be a particular generation. So therefore, that tells me what kind of platforms they're going to use, tells me where I'm going to find them online. It tells me, are they going to be engaging with print? Are they going to be engaging like Tatler? Are they going to be engaging with school guides, for example. And if not, I need to go and find those people and need to understand where are those people. So by following these different stages, and although it is in a line, you probably do need to keep going backwards and forwards. You can identify your segments, identify what makes them separate, identify how they think, how do they behave, and a lot of that behavior is how they engage with marketing. And then you can update your marketing and the offerings that you focus on for that. So how do you actually build a compelling story once you've identified those target audiences? The first thing to do, it sounds like writing a script for a movie, but the first thing to do is to set the scene. So tell us a bit about your background, your organization, the values that have developed within that. Maybe some of those come since you've been founded, and maybe some of those are new. That might be for a school, for example, that might be linked quite heavily to leadership, or it might be linked to your historic background. So decide on the elements that have the biggest influence on your values and focus on those. They're the background pieces that you need to be building so that you have a foundation for your story. Then showcase the journeys that people go through. So if you're at school, it's that educational journey. Do you have anything that sets you apart to make you unique? Are you really good at rowing? Are you really good at curling? Are you really good at a really random sport? Do you have extracurricular activities that help set you apart? Go back to that target audience segment that you've built. Make sure that those things that you're focusing on in terms of programs and extracurricular activities, make sure they're going to link emotionally to that target audience. And look at your community. What makes your community unique? What kind of journey do they go through? If it's a school, for example, or if you're selling an educational product or software, what journey do they go through before they use that software or that program, when it's being implemented, and then when they're starting to use it? How's it impacted on the work that they do, the services they provide? So that you can start to kind of get this idea into people's head. Oh, if I was in that situation, it would transform my position or my life or my work in X, Y, and Z ways. I really like to be very positive with marketing. I think sometimes the education sector can be unwilling to brag or to kind of shout really loudly about some of the amazing things they've done. But the best way to kind of talk about those triumphs and some of those challenges that you've overcome is to share real life stories. If you're a school, for example, that would be ideally from your learners. So what challenges have they faced, and what challenges have you as an organization helped them to overcome? It might be, going back to that resilience point, it might be that your community's helped. It might be that that support around building resilience has been a big part of them overcoming some of those challenges. When you're talking about real life stories, try and ask questions that are going to get an emotional reaction. So if you're recording video, for example, I really like people to talk through their favorite day that they've had within the school, their favorite moment when they've been using a product or a service, rather than just asking them, why do you like working with us? Why do you like attending the school? Why do you like whatever? Because when you ask those questions, you tend to get very polished results, and there's not as much emotion in it. So when you ask people about kind of favorite moments, for example, they relive that moment in their head, and you can see it on their faces, and it comes across in that excitement, excited way that they're talking. And then those success stories could be key milestones that people have been through. It could be things that customers have done with your product or service, or it could be alumni, people that have gone on to do great things because of the foundations that you gave them when they were attending your educational organization. So these are not incredibly difficult things to do on paper, but in reality, they all need to come across as genuine and honest, and they all need to have a golden thread that runs through them. Those challenges, those triumphs, those success stories, those journeys all need to be linked to your values in a very honest way. You can't just force this. If your values are around community, for example, you need to be backing that up with real life stories that are open and honest. And sometimes they're going to come across as cheesy. Sometimes they're going to come across as not very polished. I wouldn't worry about that too much, because I think that those things create a genuine connection, a genuine connection for emotion. Because when you talk about those challenges and you talk about people overcoming them, you do start to create an emotional connection. And that will very quickly, if you repeat that messaging, and it's important you consistently repeat that messaging, you'll very quickly help to improve your conversion rates throughout your marketing funnel, because you'll be able to influence people's decision. And if things don't go well, which they don't always, so for example, with schools, the admission process, things can go wrong. People are more likely to be willing to overlook some of those things if they've got an emotional connection. So what can you do from a practical sense? I'd be getting some testimonials. Hopefully a lot of you have already got testimonials that you use. They work really well. They don't just have to be from current pupils of your school. Do use things from your staff. Do use people that that are very good at showing their emotions. They don't have to be really polished at presenting to a camera, but good at showing their emotions, good at telling stories. Do use as much visual media as possible. We know that in some situations, visual marketing increases the conversion rate by kind of up to 100%. So use as much visual storytelling as possible. Photos, videos are really good. Things that are real life scenarios that are very candid rather than highly polished, and show community. If you talk about things like community, which a lot of people do, show genuine community. I've seen a lot of photos of new staff sat in very straight lines or looking very awkward, shoulder to shoulder in a staff room. Try and get pictures and video that is a little bit more relaxed. And then you can pick the right platforms to use that on. You don't have to use that across the board, but it does help to get that emotional connection. Celebrate diversity, because your values, if you push things too much and they're too niche or they're too focused, you have the possibility of excluding people feeling that they're not suitable for your product, your service, your school, to come and even work for you as a teacher. So really highlight diversity. That doesn't just have to be demographics, by the way. I think a lot of people focus on that. For me, diversity of thought is really important. It might be that you highlight people's challenges that they've overcome, maybe a pupil's challenge that they've overcome, and then you talk to a different pupil. They've overcome the same challenge, but they've got a different way of approaching things. It meant something completely different to them. Highlight some of those differences. Highlight the fact that your solution is suitable for a wide range of people. You're not just targeting one type of person. And that's why segmenting your target audience is really useful, because it might show you that actually you've got lots of different segments rather than one individual type of person. Especially in a time when it's really difficult to attract people, don't be too restrictive on yourself. And celebrating diversity will help you with that. Use sensory language, so descriptive language that's going to appeal to people's senses and make things more vivid and more engaging. Describe things in detail if you're really passionate about them, so that people can get that passion across. sometimes when you don't do that and you're telling stories, they kind of get lost. The main point gets lost. It all gets diluted down. But by focusing on the core elements in a very vivid and engaging way, they stand out from maybe your editorial, maybe a video, whatever it might be. You want those key messages to stand out. And the way to do that is to focus on them with vivid and engaging language. And use specific examples. The more broad you are, the less people are likely to believe your stories. So focus on exact examples, use the language from the people that have lived those examples, and you should be in a position to be able to create something that people feel honest. Because creating things that are genuine and relatable is going to be really important. And the easiest way to start to do that is to use true stories. Does anybody have any questions about this slide? Perfect. So how could you actually be integrating some of these things that we're talking about into your marketing? So blogs and articles are really good. Avoid using AI for this. Share stories of success, share things that are positive. There's a lot of negative things out there at the moment. There's a lot of people worrying about things across the sector, across the world, across the UK, wherever it might be. There's a lot of negative things out there. So celebrate things in those blogs and articles. Don't use AI because it's just regurgitating content from other places. Maybe use it to create ideas for those blogs and articles. But I really like sharing insights. I really like highlighting successes. And I do find that audiences respond well to facts and figures. And a lot of AI content doesn't have that in. So get some kind of content out there that uses those facts and figures, because you've got to think of people talking about your service or your product to other people. If you use facts and figures, they can quote those facts and figures very easily, and it's very useful to kind of increase that brand reach. Integrate stories into your social media. So you could use things like actual Instagram stories or Facebook to share quick visual narratives. You don't have to have kind of detailed stories. It could just be a 15-second video clip from an event that you've run. And it would be really good if more educational organizations could be providing what I would use, the words I would use would be behind the scenes. So maybe that's setting up for something. Maybe it's the effort that teachers put into preparing for a parents' evening. Maybe it is behind the scenes of a drama production and everything that's going on behind there and the work that makes like a play a success. In the pandemic, a lot of people hosted virtual open days. They hosted virtual questions and answer sessions, and a lot of people have moved away from them. I really like those. I know a lot of people that are moving to the UK that are interested in schools, for example, that they find it very difficult to attend in person. So do consider things that are virtual. And then use email marketing. So when you're generating engagement, you're generating interest in your products or services, make sure that you're building a list of people and engage with those people through a regular newsletter. And just going back to that earlier pie chart, make sure that you're sending it out at a regular interval, but something which isn't going to be bothering people. And consider segmenting your audience. Current parents and pupils, for example, current customers, they want different information to potential customers, parents, pupils, and what they want. Those potential people, they don't want to hear too many stories about people they don't know about, whereas those current people, they will want to know about people they know about. They will want to know about how things are going to impact them. So again, coming back to that segmentation, It's really helpful with storytelling to consider which stories you're going to be telling for those different segments. So, um, who, if anybody, who has some questions for me about storytelling? I'm just going to leave this slide up because I think it's an important one. Does anybody have any questions at all for me, or any situations where they think they could use storytelling that might be able to add some value? Perfect. Hopefully that means I covered a lot of things and I provided a good level of detail. That is everything that I plan to go through today. I'm going to send a copy of the recording out to everybody later on today, so you should all receive that. If you have any questions afterwards, do feel free to email me. I'm very happy to give you a call and go through any of the points that we've covered today. But thank you all very, very much for attending. I'm going to turn my microphone off and my camera off, but I'm going to stay for a couple more minutes just in case anybody thinks of any questions that they might have.